Okay, I want to keep the video at a reasonable length this time, so let's go, go, go! Victory Road started not with the X Division title match for a change, but with James Storm versus Bully Ray. Bully Ray comes out and says that he's taken the pay-per-view hostage until his match with James Storm has made a #1 contenders match for the world title a lockdown. He gets the crowd all worked up for a few minutes, then Storm comes out and beats him in about 60 seconds. And say what you want, but I think they needed to do something like this, because when I saw that YouTube video before the pay-per-view, I said to myself, they need to help Storm out, because Bully Ray really feels like he's got more momentum as a world title contender right now. I mean, I love James Storm, but it did feel like his heat had kind of cooled off recently. So it is unfortunate that Bully Ray got jobbed out like that, but for James Storm's sake, I think this was kind of necessary because he needed a little bit of a boost. Austin Aries versus Zema Ion for the X Division title was next. Aries got a total face reception, and he didn't go all the way to the babyface side of the fence, but he wasn't discouraging the face pops either, which did help at least give you a clear person to root for. This was a really nice match that I wish had been higher on the card, because Austin Aries belongs higher on the card at this point, damn it. And this match is a perfect example of why. After watching this match, it's more clear than ever why Aries is the longest reigning X Division champion of all time now. Outside of Alex Shelley, he's just that much better than every other X Division guy they have. And I think it kind of hurt Ion a little bit, because while this was a good match, I never got the impression that he really had Aries in trouble. I mean, Aries was tweeting during the match, which was fucking hysterical. And even after Ion blinded him with the hairspray, he was still fighting back with his sunset flip powerbomb. He still nailed his finisher. He was still in the driver's seat. I mean, yes, Ion was in control at certain points, but the story that's told, at least in my mind, was that Aries just had him outclassed. I mean, so Ion may need to go back to the drawing board now, but it's a great win for Aries that further solidifies him as a cut above the rest, and I'm not sure where they go next with his title reign, but I've loved every minute of it so far. Tag team title match, Matt Morgan and Crimson versus the Joe Daddies. This was the first match of the night where they pretty much abandoned any pretense of Victory Road being its own entity and just went, you know what? We're setting up lockdown here. Everybody knows it. Let's not even waste time trying to hide it. This wasn't about the tag team titles. It was about pulling the trigger on Crimson's heel turn. He won't tag in Morgan. Morgan tags himself in. Crimson gets pissed off and spears him. Joe and Magnus go over. And nothing came of Matt Morgan's teased heel turn on Impact last week, so I guess we're just ignoring that. The match may have been secondary to the story, but the story I thought was told effectively. Although Mike Tenay did his best to ruin it by talking over Crimson at the end there. But this is what the whole match was about, and it accomplished some good things. Crimson gets that much-needed heel turn, and the Joe Daddies get another win. Oh, god damn it! You stupid idiot! Stop trying to get Joe Daddies over! It's not going to catch on! It might. You don't know. Next. Oh, God. Robbie E. and Rob Terry come out. So Robbie's doing his little bullshit open challenge, and he wants to take on one of the fans this time. And I swear, he spent what felt like 10 years setting this up before Devon finally came out of the crowd. And I know what they were trying to do here. They wanted to have the heel get the crowd all riled up so they can get that big pop when the babyface kicks his ass. But you know what? That only works if the heel is over. Robbie E. is not over. Nobody gives a flying fuck about this clown. The Impact Zone crowd sure didn't care about him, and they were actually awake that night. Bully Ray did the same thing at the start of the show, and it worked with him because Bully Ray is a heat machine. But when you try to do it with Robbie E., who barely gets any crowd reaction at the best of times, it just becomes fucking tedious. But finally, Devon shows up, kicks Robbie's ass in a really short match. Devon's the new TV champion. Thank you, Devon. It wouldn't have been my first choice to take the belt, but I'm so thrilled that Robbie finally lost that damn thing, I don't even care. And holy shit, could his title reign have been any more pointless? He won the belt from Eric Young, spent the next few months doing absolutely nothing, didn't get a single feud or storyline, barely appeared on Impact, when he did it was usually to job to someone, and then he lost the title in a one-off match with no build-up at all. Why in the blue hell did you even put the title on him in the first place?
You people are fools!
You know what? Never mind. I don't even care. I'm just glad it's over. Congratulations, Devon. And Robbie, now that you're no longer a champion, please do the world a favor. Get the fuck off my television and stay off. Oh, my brother. Testify. Next was the Knockouts title match. Not a lot of heat for this one. Unsurprisingly, the storyline really hadn't been that interesting. Anyway, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. God bless Gail Kim. She carried Madison Rayne to a decent match. I didn't care about it. I don't think a lot of people did, but it was decent. And make no mistake about it, Gail was the reason why it was as good as it was, because the quality of Madison's matches pretty much rises and falls with the quality of her opponents. But Gail wins clean. Thank you. Now she moves on to Lockdown, and presumably a title defense against Velvet Sky. Ha-ha! God help us. Kaz and Daniels versus AJ Styles and Ken Anderson. The match was very good. About the match I have no complaints. But I don't know if the Faces going over was the right call, because the Faces got the upper hand on the previous Impact, and the Impact before that. Them going over again here, I don't see what that did to advance this storyline to the next chapter, or this feud to Lockdown for that matter. I really felt like the heels needed this win because they'd been losing momentum since Ken Anderson returned, and they just lost a lot more. And honestly, I think the only reason why the Faces won this match was because it was the return of Ken Anderson, and the writers didn't want to kill his heat by jobbing out his team on his first pay-per-view back. And I'm not saying that was the wrong way to go, but ultimately, I think this may have hurt Kaz and Daniels more than it helped AJ and Anderson. Kurt Angle versus Jeff Hardy. This was a terrific match. The best match of the night easily. The crowd was nuts for it. And do you see now why it was a mistake to half-ass the hype for this one on the go-home show? Yeah, the storyline really doesn't have much substance to it, but just based on star power and the quality of the match you knew they were going to have, logically, this should have been one of the main selling points of the pay-per-view if we're talking about doing good business, and it just wasn't treated that way. They just wasted too much time on Impact with the Garrett Bischoff stuff and trying to hype up the Knockouts title match that I don't think a whole lot of people really cared about, when they should have been more focused on this. And Gail, I'm sorry to say that about your match. That's not a reflection on you at all. You were in a no-win situation here. It wasn't your fault. Sting versus Bobby Roode, no holds barred. They didn't go into the crowd, thankfully, but aside from that, this was about what I expected. A lot of brawling, a lot of unimpressive action, not for lack of effort on their part, but Sting just can't really do that much in the ring anymore. And I hated the booking here. Bobby Roode spent way too much time trying to run away from Sting when he should have been the aggressor in this match. Sting got way too much offense, and the finish was stupid beyond measure. That was obviously done just to protect Sting. It was done to give him an out. They gave him an excuse for losing when that was the absolute last thing they should have done. What the hell are they protecting Sting for? Bobby Roode was the one who needed to be protected here. Bobby Roode needed to beat Sting because he was just better than Sting. Because Roode overwhelmed him and Sting just couldn't take it, which would then make James Storm eventually beating Roode for the title all the more satisfying and impressive. But instead, Roode only won because Sting made an unintentionally hilarious mistake and misjudged the distance between the steel chair and his own head just when he had the match won.
This whole show is ridiculous!
Sure, Bobby Roode went over in the end, but he didn't win because he was better. He won because he got lucky. Why in God's name would you end the match like that when you could have done something like Roode tapping out Sting with his own submission hold in the Ultimate Insult or something like that? Fuck that finish, man. That was ridiculous.
This whole show violates everything about my journalistic integrity.
They did a little damage control afterward, though, with Roode pulling Dixie into the ring and threatening her, and that did at least make him look like a despicable person and got him a lot of heat. And I have absolutely no idea why James Storm didn't come out, but there you go. And for the most part, I liked Victory Road. They did some good things here. Robbie lost the TV title. Most of the right people went over the right way. Not all of them, mind you, but most of them. And for this company, that's quite an accomplishment. I did not agree with the booking of the main event whatsoever, but they did end the show with a hot angle that got people talking. Love it or hate it. And the best part of the show by far? The Motor City Machine Guns return promo. Oh, hell yeah. Something else I liked was the Twitter usage, and you might be surprised to hear me say that because I get pretty annoyed by WWE's fascination with Twitter, but WWE just use it to constantly pat themselves on the back about which superstars are trending worldwide at any given time. And yeah, TNA were mentioning that too, but they were more focused on using it as a tool to enhance fan interaction. Yeah, they were reading tweets from fans during the show, finding out what they thought, taking questions fans tweeted and asking the wrestlers these questions during interviews. I thought that was really cool. Stuff like that is what helps fans feel like they're more a part of the show. If you want to incorporate social media into the product, that's a great way to do it, by involving the audience as much as possible. So, final verdict on Victory Road. Could have been a little better, could have been a lot worse. I was mostly satisfied. Unfortunately, the impact spoilers don't look so hot. Hopefully it comes off better than it looks on paper. So let's find out if it does. Have I mentioned how much I dislike Dixie Carter as an on-air personality? I'm sorry, but she does not come off well at all. Maybe she's just not a natural performer like Vince McMahon is. Maybe she's nervous on camera. I sure as hell would be, and that's understandable. But you know what? Just don't put her in an on-screen role. You're not getting favorable results when you do this. She looks terrified when she's out there. She always sounds like she's about to burst into tears, and the writing isn't helping either. And some of the lines they're giving her, combined with her performance, she just comes off as this completely meek, timid pushover. And this is the owner of the company, and she's the boss. She's the person who's supposed to command authority, and you've got her in front of the whole world on the verge of tears saying, "I don't know what to do, Sting. Tell me what to do." I really don't understand why she would ever let the creative team write her like this. Do you honestly think Vince McMahon would ever let his writers cast him in such a submissive role? No way in hell would he allow that. I don't know if this is by design or what, but Dixie's on-screen character has been developed into this helpless, naive, easily coerced and manipulated puppet who constantly needs Sting's validation because she seems to have no confidence in her own abilities. Not a reflection of her in real life, of course, but this is how she's coming across on TV, and I really don't see how that helps anyone. I mean, look at what happened here. She gets threatened by a wrestler, which you'd think she'd be getting used to by now, but no. And this terrifies her so much that she's not even thinking clearly. So much so that she's actually considering what Sting is suggesting to her. Considering allowing Hogan to become the new Impact general manager. And may I remind you, this is the man who stole her company, who committed a massive, highly illegal, multi-million-dollar fraud against her, who publicly humiliated her on several occasions, who had her husband physically assaulted, and a whole lot of other evil shit too. If a man did that to me, I wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire. No rational person would trust Hogan to make them a sandwich after all that, and yet this is the guy that Dixie seems this close to granting authoritative responsibilities of the TV show. And why? Because Sting said that she can trust Hogan. And according to Dixie, Sting has never steered her wrong. Really, Dixie? Really? Never? Sting's never steered you wrong? Not once? So, the main event mafia, that just never happened? Really? Really?
Really?
And what makes it even worse is that Sting is the one who's pushing for this so he can go back to being a full-time wrestler. No! 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 Damn it, TNA, have you learned nothing? Sting was in a perfect position as the GM. He could feud with the younger stars and give a rub to them without taking too much of the spotlight from them by getting back in the ring on a regular basis. You make him a full-time wrestler again, and you're just going backwards. The GM thing was a great role for Sting, but Hogan is going to be freaking unbearable. It's going to be tons more rambling, out-of-touch, incoherent promos. He's probably going to be inserting himself into every single main event because that's just what he does. He can't seem to help himself. This is going to be awful.
I was a war correspondent, and now I'm covering this.
I know why they're doing this. The ratings have gone down. And when you put the focus on creating new stars, you have to expect that to happen at first. But Dixie sees those numbers dropping, so she hits the panic button, necessitating the immediate return of Hogan to TV as a ploy for viewership, made blatantly obvious by the fact that pretty much the entire show was built around this instead of, Lockdown. It's true the ratings hadn't been great lately, so I'm not going to argue against this anymore, but TNA cannot keep going back to guys like Sting and Hogan to keep the ratings in the black. That is a short-term solution. These guys are not going to be there forever. Someday they are going to leave, and the company needs to be able to stand on its own when that happens. So after that bombshell they dropped on us, you'd think the show could only get better from there. You'd be wrong. Because how do you take a show that features the return of Hulk Hogan to a position of authority and make it worse? You bring back Mexican America! In TNA's continued efforts to keep Spike TV happy, this week's episode featured a guest appearance by, the guy from that Repo show. I don't know his name. And they put him in an angle where he shows up to repossess Mexican America's car. An angle which serves as little more than an excuse to give Anarchia ample screen time in which to act like one of the most offensive walking stereotypes to ever appear on television. 3 goddamn segments they devoted to this! And yes, it was every bit as bad as it sounds. The only thing that almost made it worthwhile, aside from Joe and Magnus using Hernandez and Anarchia as enhancement fodder, was the last segment, where the guy pretty much made Anarchia look like a complete jackass, and then walked off with Sarita and Rosita, who decided to ditch their male counterparts for him. And with any luck, that signified the complete and utter dissolution of Mexican America, a faction one cannot possibly discuss while keeping the bile securely contained in your intestines. Hopefully Sarita is on her way to better things in this company now, and I never want to see Hernandez and Anarchia on my television ever again.
Nobody cares about you guys.
They had a 4-way X Division title match. It was really enjoyable. Good to see Tony Nese back. Austin Aries continues to tease a face turn. Everything's going really well. And then Bully Ray shows up, takes out every guy in the match, including Aries, who he was aligned with just 3 weeks ago, then gets a microphone and says his name. So apparently the point of this run-in, the point of Bully Ray punking out the majority of the X Division roster, was so he could remind the audience what his name is.
What the fuck?
Why? This was the most inexplicable segment of the night. I understand that they wanted to get Bully's heat back after his loss to Storm on Sunday, but number one, to do it at the expense of 4 X Division guys when you've been trying to make that division mean something again just made me angry. And number two, we're already well aware of what Bully Ray's name is. He reminds us in almost every promo he cuts. If that's all he was going to say here, then really, what was the point of this? To their credit, at least the announcers didn't gloss over the Aries thing. I mean, they were as baffled as I was. They were on the same team a few weeks ago! What's Bully Ray doing? And that helped redeem this somewhat, but it felt like they were just looking for a way to further Aries' path towards a full-on face turn and decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. But the way they went about it just felt really rushed and lazy to me. Eric Young and ODB defended the Knockout Tag titles against Sarita and Rosita. Typical comic relief match from these two that I hated, but the casual fans probably ate up. Sarita deserves so much better than this. Something I did like, Crimson cut his first promo as an official heel. He already looks more comfortable with this new persona. I think this is going to suit him much better. Then Matt Morgan attacked him. Pretty short but effective segment. They had a really nice video package for Storm vs. Rude at Lockdown. Then James Storm cuts a promo, and he has a segment with a member of Bobby Roode's legal team. And while I do think it was a mistake to not have Roode appear during this in some way, even if it was just on the video screen, I thought this was alright. Interesting tidbit here. The lawyer was played by Shane Haste from OVW. Now, I know him and Mikey Nichols had a tryout at the TV tapings, so I guess that bodes well for their chances of getting signed if they put Haste on TV. I watched a couple of their matches. They're not a half-bad tag team. I mean, hell, I'd take them over the Robbies and fucking Mexican America any day. But then... Kurt Angle challenges Garrett Bischoff to a rematch. Remember last week how I said the booking of Garrett had improved because they basically had Angle kick the shit out of him and Garrett just barely managed to get through the match, and all things considered, that was a more effective way to use him than shoving him down people's throats? Well, this week, in this 3-minute challenge, they had Garrett out-wrestling Kurt Angle!
Oh, what a bunch of bull.
And not only that, but Garrett frustrates Kurt Angle to the point where he needs Gunner to come out and help him, which then brings out Jeff Hardy, and I cannot believe this is happening. But they're actually using a Kurt Angle-Jeff Hardy feud as nothing more than a vehicle to get Garrett Bischoff over. In TNA, this is why people don't like Garrett. This is why so many people resent him. First, because he's getting the whole world handed to him on a silver platter, getting all these crazy opportunities that no one in his situation and experience level should be getting. Second, I don't know if you've noticed this yet, but he's not even that good. I don't care whose son he is. This push is a damn farce. Oh, and lowest rated segment of the night, by the way. Just saying.
I'm done. I am done with you. I'm done with this entire show.
James Storm had a handicap match with Kaz and Daniels and beat them in like 3 minutes and change. Really didn't agree with that. Does James Storm need all the momentum he can get before lockdown? Yes. But for him to beat them so quickly, even though the story is that they're having problems and not getting along, doesn't that really undermine their feud with AJ? Plus, they are a good, viable tag team, which you have a serious shortage of right now. And granted, the return of the machine guns looks to be imminent, but why would you want to use Kaz and Daniels like this? I mean, you kind of threw them under the bus here, and that just seems wasteful. And then the final segment was devoted to Sting bringing out Hogan and trying like hell to sell Dixie on making Hogan the GM. And she does look trepidatious at least, but she's about to give in. And the fact that they put so much emphasis on this, put so much effort into trying to get people excited for this, says everything you need to know. They're begging for viewers here. This is as transparent as ratings ploys get, and the sad thing is, if you look at the quarter hours, it didn't even work! Maybe it will next Thursday if people know to expect Hogan then, but he sure wasn't a draw this week. I enjoyed a few things here, but generally I really did not like this episode. The focus should have been on Lockdown, and instead it was on Hogan, Sting, and Dixie Carter. It's disappointing that they're not staying the course and keeping the focus on the young talent, but they felt like they had to do something to fix the ratings problem. And I really wish they could come up with something other than the same damn thing they always do when ratings are down. But apparently it's going to take something pretty drastic to get them to break that habit. That's it.
Don't push your slave.